Well, good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to another live and Laois show, joined by one of my great co-hosts, Hannah Cahill from Rathdowney. Hannah, how are you
Hi,
this
John.
evening?
I'm good, John. How are you keeping?
I'm in great form. Ladies and gents, we're delighted to be joined by a very, very proud Laois man, a very proud Colt man, Leo Kavanagh, this evening. Leo, how are you?
Hi, John. How are you keeping, lad?
I'm in great form. And Leo, we were just discussing there off camera your family's connection with 1916, and in
That's
particular
correct.
your grandfather's connection with 1916. Not only with 1916, but with the first action of the 1916 Rising. Would
That's
you like to
correct,
tell our
John.
viewers a little bit about that?
Yeah, just a wee bit about it. In 1916, the first action of the Rising was to derail a train carrying British soldiers and their Armalites at Colt Wood. Now, at the time, my grandfather would have been a very young man. He would have been in his early 20s. So himself and a lot of good men from around this neck of the woods, Colt and Nenagh as well. I know we don't see eye to eye GA-wise, but on this one, we worked very well together. They derailed this train and a shot was fired, and that was possibly the first shot of the 1916 Rising.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, my granddad would have naturally been a part of the old IRA, and he had run-ins, we'll say, with those wonderful people called the Black and Tans later. And I am proud to say we don't hide this, that the poor man was on the run for quite a while, because if he had been caught, he was going to be in serious doo-doo.
Exactly. And had he been caught, I shudder to think of the consequences, but
it would have been bang.
And you wouldn't be here this evening, Leo.
No. Wouldn't that be a terrible disappointment for all your viewers?
Well, yes, absolutely. Because Leo, you strike me like the man that you could sit beside for hours in the pub. I'd say you've incredible stories for us.
I have a few stories anyway. And actually, I suppose my years working down in your county in Tipperary stood to me as well.
Oh, go on. You kept that from me.
I was employed by the Revenue Commissioners for 4.5 years in Nenagh, County Tip, probably 4.5.
Very good.
Probably the 4.5 years of the best years of my life, to be honest with you. I met some wonderful people. Some of them are sadly gone to their eternal reward, but I keep in contact with quite a few of the ladies and lads even still. And I left Nenagh in 1996.
Yeah,
so from 92, it's a fabulous town, and I haven't been there in years. And once this whole disastrous pandemic is over and done with, it's on my bucket list, to-do list, to go back to Nenagh and just see how the town is looking.
And speaking of 1916, Leo, I mean, a certain blow-in like myself organised a commemoration and opened the gardens there, the commemorative gardens in Colt. And your father had the great honour of raising the flag on that occasion.
Yes, on the official opening, Dad was a very, very proud man that night. He raised the national flag, and I didn't know how good he was at saluting, because I always thought you saluted something like that, but he told me very quickly it was like that, and that always get it right.
Absolutely.
So whether he was telling me that this could be your job in the years to come, Leo, I don't know, but still, that was one of the many things the man taught me.
Absolutely. And speaking of your mum and dad, going back to your childhood, Leo, what kind of childhood did you have in Colt? How would you describe it to the viewers?
I would describe it as a very happy childhood, right? Now, my story was I was born on the 12th of October 1966, which makes me 54 years of age. first child of Tony Kavanagh and Anne Knowles. My mother is from Wolfhill. They met through St. Fintan Psychiatric Hospital in Portlaoise, where both of them worked at one stage. Dad trained to be a male nurse, but he didn't stick the course. My mother most certainly did. She worked for 30 years in the psychiatric hospital in Portlaoise, and she loved every day of it. But then Mum was that type of person. She's a wonderful woman and a very caring person, and she was totally and utterly cut out for that job.
Yeah, it sounds like, obviously wonderful parents, but it sounds like a wonderful childhood as well, Leo.
It was. Well, John, at the age of 2 weeks, Mum discovered my physical disability, right? She was changing my nappy, as you do with little babies, and she got a bit of a land, as we'd say around here, or a bit of a shock, in that she noticed, and she thought she was probably going mad, God bless her at the time, that one of my left leg was shorter than my right? And she immediately called for Dad, because naturally being the firstborn child, that this was panic stations after having great joy of having your first baby. And I was brought into my local GP, and I was referred on to Kilkenny Orthopaedic Hospital in Kilkenny. At the age of, I suppose, 1 month, I was firstly operated on by a guy called Dr. Maharaj. Now, Maharaj, I discovered later, was given the name by some of his former victims or patients, whichever you want to call it, as the Butcher of Bangalore, because this guy was not a fully qualified orthopedic surgeon. How, in the name of God, he had ever gotten into this country to operate on people. Yes. And he left an awful lot of people in a very bad way. So you had people who might have had a very, very mild physical disability. Once he was finished with them, it was far from a mild disability. And the amount of lives that man ruined, it was absolutely phenomenal.
Sorry to hear that, Leo. So, I mean...
Fact of life.
Fact of life. So he took a small problem and made it much more severe.
He made it far more severe. Because, like, he was probably the chief orthopedic surgeon in Laois at the time. I remember years later going to the clinics, and the amount of people who would be attending his clinics was absolutely unbelievable. Now, I always wondered why there were so many people on walking sticks, and they weren't all elderly people either. There was quite an amount of people, would say, in their 30s and 40s, but this was the handiwork of this guy. I don't know when they eventually outed him and got rid of him, but if he was around today, I'd like to meet him very much.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. And if such an encounter took place, Leo, what would you tell the surgeon now? I mean, what have you missed out on, do you think? What do you know you've missed out on because of what he did?
I missed out on probably what people might call a normal childhood, being able to run, being able to play football, being able to play hurling. And that was just, but like, you try not to dwell on these things. Now, if I was to meet Maharaj today, I probably wouldn't say anything. Irrespective of his age, I would probably just, I'm not a violent person, but I would probably just hit him a smack and walk away.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's and I mean it malpractice. I mean, unfortunately, medical malpractice is commonplace.
Unfortunately,
and as you say, so many people have been affected by this issue. I mean, how then this basically added to disability. This
most
disability
definitely
made worse.
Yeah, because I have what's called a congenital hip deformity. Now, it was quite common back in the 60s and 70s that children were born with this. But my situation was that a square peg doesn't go into a round hole, right? So I have a square hip joint that doesn't fit in to around hip socket. And irrespective, like I still have the scars of an operation that took place in 1966, right? And quite an amount of them. But like, I don't really, I don't think I have the physical or the mental scars, because I'm one of these people, you just get up and get on with it. Like, you're dealt a hand of cards, and if the hand of cards isn't quite what you were expecting, what can you do about it? You just wait for the next hand.
You keep going. And
you
how,
to,
Leo?
John.
Yeah. And how did this, when you started your schooling, how did this affect you in school? Like, was there discrimination? Were you picked on?
Not picked on per se, right? It was more exclusion, right? I wasn't able to run around like the rest of the lads. I wasn't able to play football, hurling, and whatever else went on. So I found myself playing with the little girlies quite a lot, and they played house quite a lot. And you can guess who was daddy sitting in the corner doing nothing. Yes. And I probably am still nearly like daddy sitting in the corner today. So that actually it was good preparation for life, I suppose, in that respect. But that's just one way. No, in the National School in Raheen, right? I went to school with lovely people, and I would count most of them as very good friends of mine, even today. There was never any sort of name calling or bullying or the likes. A wee bit of that when I went to secondary, all right. I started to encounter that. And that was in the vocational school, or the tech in Abbeyleix, as it was. That school since closed and is now, I think it's a third level college now, or further education college now.
That's right, it is. And yeah, like back in the day, I mean, it's obviously it's a huge jump for any child to go from primary to secondary.
Most definitely. You learn the facts of life, I suppose, and coming from a fairly sheltered existence in the space of a week, with what was coming out of guys' mouths, like, and the likes of that. But like, that was normal. Like, we were all the very same. We were all as green as grass, especially children coming from a rural area, like into a town setting. And I'm not blaming all of the good people of Abbeyleix for that either. There was quite a few rural books as well that would teach you a thing or two, I can tell you.
I can imagine. Yeah. Hannah, do you want to jump in there?
I wanted to ask you, Leo, when you were talking about the butcher, have you ever met any of his former victims or patients?
Yes, I have. Actually, one of his victims just happened to be a first cousin of my mother, who was waiting to go to theatre this day for under Dr. Maharaj, and a nurse came up to her and said, "Mrs. if you had any sense, you'd get out of that bed and pack your bags and get out of here immediately." Because she said, "Look at all of those other people in those beds. Those people are basically disabled for life thanks to that effort that's operating at the minute down in the theatre." And she had the good sense to do that. But when I heard it, I went, "Thank God somebody understands me."
Yeah. It's shocking. Like, I've never heard of this doctor, and I mean,
you're a young one, you see, so you wouldn't have had naturally. But people we'd say in their 40s upward would around here who had physical disabilities would be only too well aware of this boy.
It's awful.
And did any of this so-called surgeon, we can't even give him that, we shouldn't give him that title because he wasn't.
Yeah.
No, and I wouldn't either. No, on the basis of what you've told us this evening, you couldn't, Leo.
No.
But I mean, did any of these his victims, proceed with compensation claims, or did it go to the courts?
I doubt it, John. I'd say if probably the first case was brought against him, I'd say he amused back home as quick as he could, never to be heard of again, thank Christ.
And he didn't have to face any You know?
No, definitely not, because I would say that guy was gone out of Ireland by the mid-70s.
Mm.
And in those days, there wasn't claims like that.
No, we're gone. I think we're gone to the other extreme now, Leo.
Possibly, yeah. I would agree with you on that to a certain extent, but probably if there is a case of neglect or maltreatment of a human being, I do believe that they have every right for bringing a case.
Of course they do. Of course they do. And your education, because I mean the viewers can see you're incredibly bright and erudite, and you had your leaving cert. I mean, did you set the bar high for yourself and some of the teachers set it low for you? Or
well, let's just say with one teacher anyway, Lord rest the woman, her name was Sheila Bree. Sheila Bree was my French and English teacher in the Tech in Abbeyleix. The woman, she lived on the Ballinackill Road, so hello to all her family. She was an amazing teacher in that Sheila Bree also had a physical impairment. She had a prosthetic arm, right? So Leo, being the little messer that he was starting to get on this woman's nerves one day. So she asked Mr. Kavanagh to stay on after class for a little chat. So she came up to me anyway, and I went, right, I'm going to get an earful now. And God bless her, she, with her arm, that she lifted up her prosthetic arm and just hit me a little tap on the head, right? And it was the best slap I think I ever got in my life. And she told me to pop myself on, that life wasn't going to it wasn't a bed of roses, and I was going to meet many difficult times, as she had herself. And you can either go one way or the other. And she says, my advice to you is, you're a fairly clever chap, she says, and I know the way you should be going. So step out of line again in my class, and what you got today will be nothing to what you get the next time. And well done, Mrs. Bray.
Well,
I met her years later, and I was when I was in company, and she described me as the model student, and I was going, Mrs. Bray, are you sure you're talking about the same lad, model student? But I know she was a lovely lady. No, there were many fine teachers in the vocational school in Abbeyleix, and it was up to yourself. You either wanted to learn or you didn't. And sadly, in those days, back in the 80s, an awful lot of, very intelligent young people left school once they reached 15, when you were allowed to leave, instead of sticking the course. But an awful lot of those people who did leave school that early have also did very well for themselves, and are highly, highly, highly respected members of our community, not just around Abbeyleix, but from in their own home places. And many of them emigrated and did very well for themselves.
Did you miss many school days, Leo, because of your disability?
No, not really. I don't think. I had a fairly good school record, to be honest with you. I spent a fortnight in the orthopaedic hospital in Kappa, just outside of Finglas, and that was basically the only time I was off, other than a trip to Lourdes, I suppose. So other than that, no, I didn't. I was quite proud of myself. I went through many a year without missing a day's. But then, of course, it did help as well that my late father was the bus driver as well for most of the time when I was going to primary. So whether you were sick or well, come on up in that bus as quick as you can and go to school and learn something there, lad.
Yeah. It's just a different. It's amazing. I mean, Hannah, it's well before your time, but you, Leo, I'm the same vintage as yourself, and the changes in 50 years in Ireland. I mean, I still sometimes can't get my head around it.
John, the changes in Ireland in the last 20 years, I can't get my head around them. To be honest with you, Ireland has changed an awful lot, mostly for the better, but not all.
Yeah, I have to agree. Mostly for the better. Mostly for the better. I shudder to think the old Ireland coming back.
No, I don't think so. No, thank you. No, we've been there, done that, and we probably have the marks to prove it. Yeah,
I haven't, and I'd like to keep it that way.
I hope you do. Definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'd say we won't recognise Ireland in 20, 30 years' time at all.
No.
It's hard to know. I still think Irish people will always be fairly laid back, fairly decent human beings. That we are, like, because that's why we're so well respected throughout the world, because of our personality and our decency.
It's really bred into us, I'd say. You know.
Oh, definitely. I actually have great hopes, actually, for even with the young lads that involved in our GA club. You have very, very intelligent young gentlemen, and that's the only way to describe them. But they're highly intelligent lads who hopefully will go a long way, long after their hurling careers.
Oh, I would say so. Hope so. Absolutely. And speaking of going on a long way, Leo, after the tech in Abbeyleix, what was your next step on the road of life?
My next step on the road of life was I worked for a year as a temporary clerical assistant in the county hall in Portlaoise with Laois County Council, and that was a learning experience as well. Let's just say not all of the people at the time were delighted to have temporary staff employed by the council, because unions were fairly strong in those days, even in the council, and they didn't like temps around the place, and they made it very clear, like in no uncertain terms, like that you were at times you were about as welcome as, if you pardon the expression, a fart in a phone box.
Sorry to hear that.
No, but you're like, it was all part of a learning experience. It was all part of growing up, and I today would be a very staunch trade unionist myself. So, like, I'm today. Well, I wouldn't say it out loud or probably as bluntly as some of the people put it back in the 80s in the county hall, but no, I would believe in workers' rights, most definitely.
You're a union man.
I'm a union man.
Yeah. It still means something today to say that.
It does and should, because you just have to look at the treatment of workers today. We'll take, for instance, the Debenham workers who have been on strike for over a year in Dublin, and the gross horrible treatment that they have received from Debenhams. It's an absolute scandal. And what makes it even worse is that people are actually passing the picket and going into work. And to me, that's a serious no-no. So if there's anybody who works with Debenhams listening in, my respect to you. Keep up the good fight.
Well said, Leo. Yeah. And the moral of the story is never cross a picket, ever.
You don't do that. Most definitely not. Because I was around at the time. I remember the miners' strike even in Britain, and how Thatcher brought those poor people to heel, as she thought. But like the follow-on from that has been an awful lot of misery in, with, say, even former mining towns in Britain, especially in Wales. My sister would now live in Wales, and some of the towns to this day are totally decimated. Thanks to the handiwork of Margaret Thatcher and her government.
Yeah, decimated, and there's a lot of bitterness still, and this is 30 years later and more, 35 years later.
You're talking nearly 40 years on, John. And there's people who to this day have never worked another day. They're on social assistance in Britain, and that is very, very sad.
It's sad. Yeah. It's a waste. It's a waste of.
It's a waste of probably
potential.
Human, and human resources as well. Because there should have been something done for those people. Surely to God, if the British were the all powerful people that they thought they were, they should have brought industries back into those small towns.
Absolutely.
It just shows that when that happens to a society, it just shows that things aren't working. That shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be allowed to happen, and there should be proper supports put in place. The fact that, you know, the effects are still felt all this time after nearly, you know, it's cruel.
That's correct, Hannah. But then you must remember that Mrs. Thatcher and her government, you were talking about people who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, the vast majority of them anyway, and the people that they treated in such a horrible way were quite the opposite. These were probably people who went down the pits when they were probably about 12 or 13 and could have been younger when they were going down for the first time.
Mm.
Yeah, the haves and the have-nots, Leo, they're still with us today.
They most definitely are, and they will be for a long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. And your year in County Hall, was there an option there of going permanent?
No, we're politely told at the start of the year, you're here for the year, so enjoy your year, and then paddle your own canoe and out the door with you as quick as you
Buzz
can.
off.
Yeah,
don't
buzz
get
off.
too comfortable.
Yeah, don't call us because we won't be calling you. Yes.
Oh,
but no, but like it was great. It was great to work in that environment because it helped me years later when I joined the civil service. Like basically, it's the same layout of offices and the whole lot. It was my first open plan office I ever worked in, I suppose.
Yeah. And did you like that experience?
Yeah, because like there was always, like people were working, but there was always a bit of banter as well and a bit of crack going on also. Mm. And even then, like they were probably ahead of their time, the staff in County Hall, in that they had their social clubs and golf societies and so forth. And no, it was by and large, it was a lovely place to work now. So.
And did you jump straight from the fire into the frying pan? Did you go straight from County Hall into the civil service?
Oh, definitely not. No. I suppose I spent the next 6 months then unemployed. I eventually got a job as an accounts clerk in what was then the Esso filling station across the road from the county hospital, or the Midlands Regional Hospital in Portlaoise. As far as I know, it's apple green today, I think.
It is.
That's where I spent 2 good years there. Learned an awful lot as well. Got a very good training from Esso Ireland, that should be said, in both, we'd say, bookkeeping, accounts, but also in human resources as well, and how to manage people. And no, they Esso, as they were at the time, they were ahead of their time in relation to human resources.
Yeah, they were trailblazers, weren't they?
They were like, and they were just very professional, like, and even today, like their managerial style would fit in perfectly in most businesses around the country.
Yeah, they were pioneers.
They were, yeah. It was a good Exxon training they probably got from the States as well that helped.
Yeah, and what was the culture there? The culture of the company that you like so much?
Just, as I said, they were ahead of their time. They were meticulous in everything they did, right? Like once a month, like we all dreaded the thoughts, but our area manager would arrive, right? And you might have known one of the area managers yourself, John, a man by the name of Michael Babs Keating.
Oh, Babs, the very
Babs. Man. Well, Babs was a stickler, so he was. We used to hate Babs. We used to hate Babs's visit. Now, to be honest with you, because he would go around shelves with his finger trying to find dust. Yeah. And if he couldn't find it on top of the shelves, he would go underneath. Now, why he did that, I don't know. But anyway, sure, like, but as a person who I dealt with quite a lot in relation to bookkeeping and accounts, Michael was a good man. He taught me quite a lot.
And always immaculately turned out.
Oh, definitely. But this was the culture of Esso, like that every one of the management staff, they were immaculately turned out, definitely. Yes, no, I met him years later in the pub in Nenagh after a game that unfortunately Tipperary lost. And
it can happen to the best of us, Leo.
It was happening quite a lot, John, in those days, but we won't go there because I'm from Laois and you could throw it back at me very quickly. But,
no, I remember the bad days, Leo. I remember the bad days when you had one game every summer, you lost that game, and that was it for the year.
Oh, the good old knockout championship. A lot to be said for it, though.
A lot to be. I would like it to come back, to be honest.
I think so as well. But you see, as well as that, though, maybe then I know there's the back door, but very sad that you go out and you train for one game, right? And then it's all over and done with. That's the other side of it as well. Yeah. So at least with the back door, I suppose you do have a chance of trying to scuttle back in to it. And many as a county have regrouped and gone on, as you know yourself, to win All Ireland titles.
Yes, we've done it. We've done it ourselves.
Yeah.
Done it ourselves. I remember 2010.
We're just waiting. We're just waiting for our turn, John. It's not that far away.
No, it's not. It's not.
No,
it's not.
I don't. I do believe we have a lot of talented hurlers in this county, and we have a very decent man in charge of them as well, in James Cheddar Plunkett.
Correct.
That man would die for the county.
Absolutely. I mean, he's gone above and beyond the call of duty on so many different occasions for Laois and Laois hurling.
Yes.
And like I'm here 21 years, the standard of club hurling is good at the top. At the top, it's very good. You have a hardcore of clubs there that would be as good as anything in any other county.
Yeah, I do believe that because I haven't watched an awful lot of club hurling in Tipperary as well. I do believe that when I came back home, that our club hurling was no worse than what I'd seen down in Tipperary, I have to be honest. In fact, I would say even better, like the likes of Cameras and Portlaoise, and even Castletown as well. Like they produce fine club hurling teams. You must remember, I actually was manager of the football team with the revenue commissioners. We had a few ringers as well playing with us, the likes of Michael Cleary and Conor O'Donovan. Like, they were really working with yourself.
Michael Cleary was my favourite player.
Michael
Always
Cleary.
with a smile. Always with a smile on his face.
Lovely gentleman. Lovely guy. Yeah, and Conor was the very same. Definitely. There were two of the finest people you could meet. But those two lads lined up and they actually had to listen to me giving the team talk. And when the second half would start back, I'd be going, I'm just after giving a team talk to two men who have Celtic crosses in their pocket. All right, albeit for another sport, but I'd say they're thinking to themselves, what does that lad think he's at? But even though I was never in a position to play Gaelic football, I would be, and hurling, I would be able to read a game fairly well.
Absolutely.
From years and years of standing on the sideline, one does learn a thing or two.
Oh, absolutely. So, and would you say your sports expertise matches your political expertise and knowledge, Leo?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I like most sports. I was really, well, hopefully it still goes ahead. I'm really looking forward to the Tokyo Olympics because I have a great old graw for athletics as well. People going out there and training day in, day out on their own to reach their targets in life. And all you can do is sort of tip your cap to them and say, well done. Like, we've produced many fine athletes in this country. And will again, I do believe. I think we will on the cusp of something really, really good again as regards athletics. And I think Athletics Ireland have their house in order as well.
They do. And tell me, after Esso, after you were put through your paces by the Americans.
Yes, by the Americans. I spent the next 2 years unemployed. It was a very bad time in Ireland. Like an awful lot of our peers, John, would have emigrated, be it to either England or Britain or America. And even mainland Europe as well. Like you had communities, especially rural communities, that were also totally decimated here in this country.
Yeah, I went away myself. It was a bad time.
It was a miserable time for it to be around the place.
Yeah,
really and
it
truly.
was. Yeah, the stuffing had been knocked out of our people.
Oh yeah, of course it had. But anyway, eventually on the last week of August of 1991, I commenced working with the civil service. I started with the Central Statistics Office in Hume House in Ballsbridge.
Very good.
And we were working on, it was the 1991 census of population. Now, I wouldn't be a great lover of statistics, to be honest with you, but at least you were earning, as I say, a few bob, and it was great. And all of the people that you work with, they were all around my own age as well, and some of them just slightly younger. But great camaraderie. We had people from all parts of the country working with the CSO in 1991.
And you were hardly commuting. Were you living up there?
I commuted for quite a while actually, until a few lads, two lads from Tip and another chap from Laois, who sadly passed away while climbing Mount Everest, who was my roommate, John Delaney, Lord rest him. We shared a house. Yeah, we shared a house in Rathmines, and Rathmines in the early 90s. Things were starting to happen. You knew that the country was on its way back, and it was a good place to be for young people at that stage. But the chance came to decentralise with the revenue commissioners. So all of a sudden, I suppose, we all took the trek to Tip, and a brand new office had been built on Gertland Row. And as I said, I spent 4 and a bit years, and they were great years, and I learned a lot, met a lot of friends, and the revenue was a great place to work in. They gave you fabulous training that would stand you in stead for the rest of your days.
But so you, in essence, you've been very lucky with your employers.
I have been extremely lucky. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So from there, I went back to Dublin on promotion, back to the CSO for the 1996 census. Must have been something with myself and the census of population. But sure, I knew most of the staff, because when I went back, here I was working with an awful lot of people who had also been promoted, who hadn't really never left the CSO since 91. And they'd just gone up a grade, and I walked in and I was going, how are you, Paddy, and how are you, Mary, and how are you, Mick?
Yes.
Like, going, this is brilliant. It's like as if I hardly never left the place. And now, to be honest with you, the work at times was mind-numbing, to be honest with you. You were ticking boxes most of the day, like tick the box if you have the correct number of males in a family, so tick. And you had to, the first tick was with a green pen. Then you passed your folio over to your opposite number across the desk from you, who then took out a red pen and just double-checked everything that you were after doing before it was sent for data input.
Wow. But is that work now? I'm just kind of fascinated, Leo. Is that work all computerized now? Must be.
I don't think so, because the CSO, only a few weeks ago, I noticed that they were advertising for staff again. Now, most of them would be for field staff, enumerators and so forth.
Yes.
But they are the Public's Appointments Commission are taking on staff at the minute, and most of the staff are being recruited for what they still hope will be the 2021 census of population. Whether or not that takes place is another story.
Yeah, we'll wait with bated breath for that one.
Oh, definitely, with bated breath is right. So from there, anyway, from CSO, the following year I moved down to Kilkenny with the Office of Public Works. They had decentralised, and spent a few months there on Hebron Road, and eventually got a call that a number had come up in Portlaoise with the Department of Ag. Was I interested? And I went, yeah, probably time to go home now at this stage. So on the 1st of December of 1997, I walked into government offices in Portlaoise for the very first time and started working in the then district veterinary office for Laois, which is sadly no more.
Yeah, you miss it, obviously.
Well, I would say the farmers miss it in County Laois because now their local office, if they have any problems, they have to go to Naas to sort out matters. But then you must remember, like, the local office for the Tipperary farmer today is in the offices in Cavan.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes,
madness.
It is.
Absolute sheer madness. I know I'm going to be shot for this, but who gives a damn?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense, but it's like a lot of the world. It's a system.
Definitely. Yeah, and there's systems there. Yeah, sure. What can you do about them? You just have to roll with the punches, John.
Absolutely. And Leo, it's only in the last number of weeks that you've put out the call to set up a group for people with disabilities in Laois.
Our group, well, this is going to be a national organisation, John, because I'm one of the co-founders of what we can now announce the name of the organisation. Our group will be Physical Impaired Ireland. So we hope to help as many people with physical impairments or disabilities as we possibly can, because an awful lot of people have been left behind.
And will the group also represent and consist of people with acquired injuries and acquired disabilities?
Oh, definitely. Because the vast majority of the people who are on the committee now are actually, I would have met them firstly through Embrace farm accidents. So you're talking about farmers who have lost hands and legs, unfortunately, in farm accidents. And they're very positive people. Like, if this was to happen to me, if I had been an able-bodied person and what happened to me, to them happened to me, I don't know how I'd cope. I think I would find it very, very hard to, but they're very positive. And we have one gentleman who's with us, one of our, my co-founders, for want of a better word, and his name is Martin. Martin is from Galway. Martin lost his leg as a 2-year-old child in a farm accident well over 70 years ago.
Oh, no.
There was a mowing machine or something, and poor Martin got tangled up in it. But Martin he's an inspiration to us all. He's a lovely man. And he went on to play with some of the best show bands in the country, he was telling me. He was a drummer with many of the really, really good show bands that travel the length and breadth of the country, as he says himself. Yeah, Asher Martin, he's a great man. The man is an inspiration to us all. And he has been a great help to people who have found themselves in the likes of farm accidents. His wealth of knowledge is absolutely something else.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, inspiring person.
Inspiring, Hannah. Like, there's no two ways about the man.
And Leo, what is the purpose of the group? What do you hope to achieve?
Right, what do we hope to achieve? I better get this right now. So as Leo grabs a piece of paper here, just in case he misses out on that. Right.
You have your mission statement.
Oh, we haven't really announced that. But basically, our aim is to ensure that individuals, that our human rights are respected, people with physical impairments, right? That we are seen, heard, and included into a society that is equal, fair, and just. And as it is for every other citizen of this country. Or another way to put it is we're basically trying to deliver superior assistance that improves the quality of life of every person with a physical impairment every day, setting a standard in equality, positivity, attitude, determination, and resilience by which other physical impaired sectors will be judged. Or that's basically it. And of course, then, we go on then to the topic of the United Nations Convention on the Rights for People with Disabilities. And Ireland on this one should be hanging its head in shame, our government, really and truly, because just to give you a wee bit of history about the UN CRPD, as it's better known as, this was first signed by Ireland in 2007. It took over a decade later for the United Nations Convention to be passed by Dáil Éireann on the 7th of March 2018, finally. Ireland was the last of the 27 EU states to ratify the convention, which was firstly adopted in 2006. Basically, what it sets out to do, it sets out to protect equal treatment for all disabled or impaired people in relation to human rights and their fundamental freedoms. That's it in a nutshell. That's what it should do. But let's just say discussions are still ongoing on the United Nations Convention. And
sorry, Leo, but I was just going to say, why do you think we're so behind?
I genuinely don't know, but maybe it's just the way that people have always treated people with disabilities in this country, that they're just sort of shoved to one side, Hannah. But let's just say we're bringing them back.
Because it's such,
basically, John, unlike most other disability organisations, our organisation is going to be solely run by people with disabilities for people with physical impairments or disabilities. Now, we don't have a problem with able-bodied people joining us. They're more than welcome to do so as well. But that's just the way we are. Basically, people with any sort of a disability in this country, they're just so sick of being talked down to. It's unbelievable. Like, I'm 54 years of age. It's not that people talk down to you, but like, they really don't want your input on serious issues, because they know better than we do. They've learned about disability from a book, and they have the letters after their name. So therefore, they would be far more qualified to speak on disability than somebody who was born with congenital disability or impairment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy attitude and mentality to have. I mean, listen to the people who have actually lived that life experience.
Yeah, we have basically lived, not even lived, because even that word sort of pieces off to, we are living it every day of our lives. Like,
of course.
As I said to somebody one day, they made a comment about, isn't it an awful shame that we can't actually run for public office in the civil service? And I said like this, I sort of winked at him and I said, the way I look at it, I said, to paraphrase Raheen, I will always be disabled. I may not always be a civil servant.
That's a great line, Leo.
Well, Roy did make a similar statement about his lovely wife, Teresa, and tattoos on his arm.
Yes. Our friend Roy. But, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do actually want to put you on the spot. I mean, have you ever had the urge to run for
public office?
An election? For public office, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. It's something I haven't given up on yet, John. You could see my ugly mugshot looking down at you from a pole, maybe in the not too distant future.
Well, now, having said that, now, remember Abbeyleix is poster free. I don't want to get in trouble. I have to get that message out there. And I'd say,
a good few of the good people around Abbeyleix know me only too well, so I don't think they'll want to be, they know me old head already, so they'll know exactly what they're dealing with, I can tell you.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, I mean, how many members of Dáil Éireann have a disability?
The princely figure, John, of 0.5%.
So one person.
That one person has a visible physical impairment. The man's name is Martin Conway. He's a senator from County Clare, and Martin is visually impaired.
So we've
After
won.
that, we have won. Now, let's just dealing with a few facts, right? 13.5% in the last census of 2016 of people of the population of this country have a disability or stated they had a disability of one type or another, or an impairment, as people like to call it today. So you're talking, John, 643,131 people, right? Which is a whopping amount of people, right? And that had actually increased between the 2011 census, the one that no, I wasn't working on that. No, the 2011 census to the 2016 census by a fairly sizable number of 47,796 citizens. But as you grow older, sadly, you do develop disabilities, like the old bones certainly is good, and the joints and so forth. And you just need a bit more tender, loving care than you did previously.
Yes.
Like 1 in 10 persons back in the last census who were under the age of 45, 1 in 10 people have a disability of one type or another. That did rise then to 20% by the age of 60 years, and the rates increased naturally again above 70 years sharply because old age.
Yeah.
There's none of us getting any younger, John.
No, old father time. You can't beat old father time.
Well, I've never heard of a lad doing it so far. So
no, that's it.
If you do meet him, just send him on to me.
Yeah, we will bottle whatever he has.
Yeah, but there's a lot from the 2016 census. It did throw up an awful lot of very interesting statistics on disability in this country. If you want to hear them now, I'll just go through them just very quickly, right? Educational attainment among disabled persons was far lower than the general public. The unemployment rate within the disability community was 26.3% and more than double that of able-bodied people who were then on 12.9% of the population. In the CSO's 2007, February 2007 report, Income and Living Conditions, they basically came out with that the overall general poverty rate was showing a vast improvement. However, it was getting worse for disabled people, and they found that 53% of people with disabilities are not in work due to disability or illness, and they are even in 2016 they were experiencing severe deprivation, and I can only imagine it's going to get an awful lot worse, unfortunately, with COVID as well. Living with a disability back in around 2016, 2017 cost between 207 to 276 euro. That was actually, 2018 per week. That is, John. That's the cost to some people, with medications and other treatments. And this will unfortunately rise as well due to COVID, and I think myself as well. And then we come to another old chestnut of mine. Due to the inadequate public transport system in this country, almost 50% of disabled people experience difficulty even getting outside of their own home. Now, what I mean is going to town and so forth. And that's worse in rural Ireland, because what's happening with the transportation system in this country and rural Ireland is a blooming disgrace, and somebody would really want to cop themselves on and fairly quick. And as you know yourself, I doubt if there's many wheelchair accessible buses in Laois. Now, I stand corrected. If somebody has a wheelchair accessible bus in Laois, please let me know, because there's an awful lot of people would appreciate that information.
Absolutely. I mean, is there, see, this is the thing, is there a website, Leo, for people with disabilities to go, well, if I get this bus, it's wheelchair accessible. How to, for example, get on a train if I'm in a wheelchair? I mean, is there an A to Z for people online with disabilities in Ireland to make their lives, their daily lives, easier?
Well, that is what we aim to do, John. We aim on our website, which we will be launching very soon, to furnish people with all of these details, because people need to know that information. Can't go through life just sitting at home and wondering, how am I going to get from A to B?
And I'm sure
it's back to your head, if nothing else.
Of course. And I'm sure there are app developers that will be viewing this show, and they'll be only too happy to get involved and develop.
They know what to do. Yeah, just contact Uncle Leo, and he'll do his best to facilitate them, as I do with people with physical impairments.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
And
then, just very quickly, just to go through Laois and statistics, right, based on the 96, right? So basically, the population of Laois in the census in 2016 was 84,697 persons. 14% of those people declared that they had a disability or an impairment. So that's 11,393 people in the county of Laois. 1 in 7. So that would have been basically, it would have been basically 1 in 7 persons with a disability. And also, not to forget the carers as well, that in 2016, 3,581 carers in Laois. These are people who are saving this country billions.
Billions.
Not million, billions. Yeah.
Billions.
And they are totally just shoved to one side, and it's a disgrace what is going on with those people as well. Like, you could have a carer who is a very elderly person caring for maybe somebody with an intellectual disability. And God love them. And they're like my own parents. They love their child. We will always be their children, right?
Yes.
And it must be very hard for them thinking, what's going to happen with my son or my daughter when I pass on? It's a frightening prospect for them, I would think.
Oh, I'd say they're up at night. Can't get a wink of sleep worrying about it.
Yeah, because I've met with, say, people from the farming community who would have adult children who would have a disability, right? And they have told me straight out that they hardly sleep a wink at night, that they always sleep nearly with one eye open in case anything is wrong with their child. And their child could be 30 or 40 years of age, or possibly even around our genre 50.
Yes, our vintage.
But that's just the case, like, because the first thing in the morning when I get up, my 80-year-old mammy will say, well, did you sleep all right? Well, I never have a problem with sleep. It's sort of to rouse me out of bed, John, is more the problem. But just getting back now to the census of 2016, just based on Laois, 950 people with a physical, with a visual impairment or full or total blindness. You then had 1,738 people with a hearing impairment. Then you had people like myself with mobility impairments. They came to the figure of 4,558. And then, even children less than 14 years of age with a disability, back in 2016, there was 1,325 youngsters in that position.
Well,
these are frightening statistics. So it makes you wonder, what have this government and previous governments been doing for people with physical impairments, and also with every type of a disability. Basically, they've sat on their hands and they've waited for miracles to happen. But all I can say on that one is that miracles don't happen. You've got to do something about it.
Well said. Well said. Hannah, your reaction to those figures, they're staggering.
They are, absolutely. They're kind of, I don't have anything to say because I'm just sitting here gobsmacked. Yeah. It makes, I don't know. It's I'm actually speechless, to be honest.
Yeah, well, sure, naturally. Like, I was fairly speechless myself as well, Hannah, when I actually started doing my research. was going, no, they can't be right. No, those figures are over the top, but they're not. They're based on the figures presented to the government by the Central Statistics Office in 2017.
Yeah, that figure of 14% for Laois is slightly above the national average.
It is slightly above. We would be one of the higher, we would be in the top 10, John, in the country, in the 26 counties. Well, it's not even in the 20, even in local authority regions, because like the Dublin is broken down into the likes of Fingal, etc. as well, when it comes to these. But then the number of people, actually Fingal is at the bottom of the list. It's 11.3, I think, %. So maybe it's just that they have more access to the proper facilities and so forth, and one doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, and Leo, they're staggering figures. But I mean, if in the morning you were made, you were given the magic wand and you waved the magic wand. I mean, are there 3 things you do in the morning to help the daily lives of people with disabilities to make them some way easier?
Firstly, you've got to look at housing in this country, the housing figures and the amount of people with both physical and intellectual disabilities who are looking for a little place of their own. It's absolutely frightening. Then we look at education, and I do believe I'm a great believer in a lifelong learning, as they say. That there's never too late to sort of go back to college, because I actually went back in my mid-30s and I studied and got my diploma in human resource management with the National College of Ireland. And we used to study actually in that 2-story building right beside St. Mary's Hall in Portlaoise. I think what was the name of it? EBS or something. It was for, I think actually Laois Enterprise Office may have had it as their base at when they first came into operation. But that's where we used to study every Thursday night. You go for your lecture for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Met some lovely people there, not just the lecturers, but my fellow students. And these were very ambitious people. And I think their ambition probably rubbed off on me as well, because I can say for certain that if I hadn't to have received my diploma, I probably wouldn't have got possibly 3 promotions in the civil service at this stage.
Yeah. So it's basically you learn by the people around you.
You most certainly do, because
black cat, black kitten. Yeah.
Black cat, black kitten, and an awful lot of, as I said, very ambitious people, but they weren't ambitious in the nasty way. They just wanted to progress their careers, and they were absolutely right. And I sort of, it sort of rubbed off on me to a certain extent anyway. And just one other, well, I don't know, but just one other little stat before I make everyone stats. 19% of physically impaired people over 15, now this is Laois, back in 2016 did not have access to a vehicle in compared with 8% of the population.
So,
like all these people need are cars that can be properly adapted, machinery that can be properly adapted to suit themselves, so they can lead a normal life. Disabled people do want to be able to get from A to B. Disabled people do want to work, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, having spoken to the amputees in our group as well, and like these people would put the whole lot of us to shame, so they would. Like these, like one of them just happens to be Councillor Gabe Cronley. Gabe is a county councillor with Galway County Council, and was actually Lord Mayor, I think, or chairman as well. But Gabe is an absolutely fabulous guy, and the amount of work that man does for physical disability, and along with the likes of Peter Gohery, who would be involved with the Embrace Farm group that was set up by Brian and Norma Rowan, let me get it right, in Stradbal, or in Shanahoe, even worse again, don't make mistakes like that, Leo. In Shanahoe, following the passing of his father, the late Liam Rowan.
Yes.
I got to know, yes, God rest him indeed. I got to know Peter, and Peter is a human dynamo, is the only way to describe the man.
Yes, in a nutshell, that's exactly it.
Yeah, like as I say, like 1 minute you're leading a normal life, right? Or normal as normal can be.
Yes.
Next minute you meet a PTO shaft on a tractor. And the next day you wake up and will wake up for the rest of your days with a physical disability or impairment. And to me, that's an awful lot worse than being having a congenital impairment or disability.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still, it's a very heavy load to carry.
It's a massive burden to carry, especially when you try to go back to work and you're trying to keep your farm going as well. And but like you have people who have been paralyzed in accidents as well, and they're also trying to farm, and they're an inspiration to people, or they should be. Like these people's journeys and stories haven't been told enough.
No, but I mean, it just stands to reason. People with disabilities want to go to work, want to go to matches, want to go to pubs, want to go to nightclubs, want to go to cinemas, and they need to be able to get there in the first place, and then get in and get out. And of course, and still to this day in 2021, a lot of buildings are still not accessible to people with wheelchairs.
Very much so. Like, let's give, maybe, we'll say, for instance, if I was called for jury duty tomorrow in Portlaoise,
yes,
I'd have difficulty getting up those steps, as they say, to go into that courthouse. I actually saw a woman who had been called for jury duty, a wheelchair user, having to be lifted out of her chair by two total strangers and carried up those steps so that she could go in and present herself for jury duty. Like, in this day and age, sorry,
no, that's not right.
That's absolutely scandalous.
Yeah, it is. Not good enough. And on so many counts, Leo, this country is just not good enough.
No. But the irony of it was that the poor woman, if she did get to sit on the jury, the two lads that carried her up are probably going to be facing a certain justice about a few minutes later anyway. So, like, what did you do in this situation? Like,
yeah, I know.
I know. Amidst all of these insanely high statistics and these horrible facts that we're hearing now, they're kind of shocking. Your positivity, Leo, it just, you can just see it. Even through all of this hardship, things are so bad at the minute, but your positivity is just infectious, and it's fantastic. Well,
Hannah, it's like this, with life, you either sink or you swim. I prefer to swim, even though I don't know how to.
You don't?
No, I should have learned. I know. Definitely. Maybe that's another to do as well. Yeah.
Definitely. It's a big thing with me. If I meet people who can't swim, I said, go learn.
Yeah, and there's no reason why I can't either, because I have enough mobility as well. Like, possibly if I hadn't been such a lazy little bugger and I wasn't drinking as much porter in pubs down around Nenagh and so forth back in my early 20s, you never know what could have happened. I could have been the next Jason Smith, or our own local hero, Nicole Turner from Portarlington.
Oh, Nicole is great.
Nicole rocks, as they say. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely rocks. Well, you rock as well. But just before we finish up, and I know you're an avid sports follower, but you're a huge GA supporter. I mean, is there a ground in the country that's your favourite because of the facilities to get in and get out of? Yeah,
now this is really going to go down well with Laois people, but the facilities in O'Connor Park in Tullamore are second to none.
Yeah,
I've even noticed them with wheelchair users, that they now have lifts to bring people up, so that like, I know Peter is probably going to be very cross with me, Peter O'Neill, for raising this issue, but like, he is doing his best. Peter and myself have sat down and we have discussed people with disabilities, parking spaces, and fair play to him. During his tenure as chair, he has did an awful lot of good work so far for people with physical disabilities. So good for you, Peter. But a lot done, but more to do, as he says, and I would agree with him. We need probably to get the same thing. We need to get a lift system at the back of the stand in Park Ivorga or Moore Park or MW Higher Park or whatever park it is at the minute, so that people are not sitting in the bottom row of a stand with the rain during the winter beating down on them, and they've been frozen solid. Sorry, they didn't pay. They didn't pay their money to go in to get a drenching.
Yes. Yeah, just to explain to our viewers, Peter O'Neill is the current chairperson.
Sorry, yes, Peter is Cathaoirleach Common Neutral Scale. Yeah, Laois.
Yes. But it's great to see improvements have been made.
Improvements have been made.
Well done, Peter. Well done.
Yeah, well done, Peter.
More to do.
More to do. Yes, indeed.
More to do.
And my final stat of the night, right? Going back to 2016, this will really frighten you. 32% of people with impairments or disabilities in Laois don't progress beyond primary school level. And these are not just people with intellectual disabilities, these are also people with physical disabilities.
What
year did you say? What year was that?
Primary.
2016,
Hannah.
5 years ago.
That's insane. It's just, I mean, there's no reason for that.
No, except maybe to get from A to B as well, John.
Yeah, that's it.
And a wee bit of encouragement from their families, and hopefully the group that I'm part of will encourage these people to get out there. There's a big, bad, beautiful world though as well out there, and there's lots of opportunities, and you can discover an awful lot of these wonderful things through education. And I would say education is the way to go for people with physical impairments.
Well said. Well said. And your group and yourself, you'll be shining examples for that cohort.
We hope to be anyway. Like, all we're looking forward to now is our launch date. And it's a funny time to be launching an organisation, but in one way, it's been a good time as well, in that it's given us probably just a wee bit more time than you usually. We've taken our time over this. We're not going to rush it. This has got to be as perfect can be for the people that we are going to represent, and we'll be representing ourselves naturally as well.
Do you have a set launch date?
We haven't, but that will be announced next week. So I'll let you know, Hannah. I won't tell John.
Perfect. That's only fair. That's only fair. Contact me first, straight away.
Oh, definitely.
Hannah gets the scoop. Fair enough.
Definitely.
You can't complain about that, Leo. And Leo, I know you mentioned earlier that you're working. Your work group is working on the website. Have you a Facebook page, or are you on Instagram?
We will have all of those, please God, in the not too distant future as well. Once we get our website up and running, it will be a case of all social media systems go. And brilliant. We have actually, I was only contacted yesterday. Was it? Yeah, it was only yesterday by a lovely lady who lives in Mount Mellick, who wishes to join our group as well. And she's an expert in social media. So you're more than welcome. That's all I can say to her as well. If it saves me having to do a job, I'm all for delegation.
Delegate. That's it now. You've half a lifetime's experience, and what you've learned is, like myself, delegate.
You can't base it, John. You can't base it.
Absolutely. So, Leo, it's been a pleasure having you on this evening. A real tonic.
It's been my pleasure.
If I were a betting man, I wouldn't bet against you running for office at some stage in the future. Well, there's a little asterisk there beside your name. To be confirmed.
To be continued, yes.
To be continued is right. To be continued. And,
John and Hannah, really and truly, on behalf of, I suppose, all physically disabled people and people with disability in Laois, thank you for having me on. It's been brilliant, and it's very positive that we can get our message out on a forum like your own there with Laois people, and well done.
Oh, sure. That's what we're here for.
Yes, yeah, it's been my great pleasure. It's been my great pleasure.
And Hannah, thanks for helping out this evening.
Anytime,
pleasure to meet you, Hannah.
It was lovely. It was lovely to meet you too as well, Leo.
We'll talk again.
We will indeed.
Talk again. And to our wonderful viewers, you know the drill at this stage. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell for notifications. Like and hit the bell. Very simple. All right. So good night, everyone. Stay well and safe. Enjoy the wonderful weekend. It's to be a cracking weekend, and long may it continue. My only wish is that we get another 5 months of this weather. Lads, it's not asking too much, is it?
Don't be selfish, John.
Okay, 4 months.
The farmers in Tipperary won't appreciate that sort of talk out here.
No, well,
they like a supper rain down there. Yeah,
absolutely.
John, you're about to be cancelled on social media now.
Absolutely.
A member of Mockra has just cancelled you, John.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. So, look, good night and God bless, and take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.